The galaxy was vast, filled with countless stars and thousands of civilizations. Great empires rose and fell, yet one story remained hidden in the shadows of time. Long ago, there had been whispers of a species so dangerous, so relentless, that even the bravest warriors refused to speak their name. That species was humanity. For centuries, most aliens believed it was only a legend, a frightening tale told to young soldiers so they would not grow careless. But a few remembered the truth. In the deep archives of the Galactic Council, locked behind restricted seals, there were records too dark to read in daylight. They spoke of fire raining from the skies, of armies that never surrendered, and of a single planet that stood against the galaxy itself. That planet was Earth. In the present age, the galaxy lived in fragile peace. Trade routes connected worlds, alliances tied enemies together, and new generations laughed at the old warnings. The Council of Nine, the most powerful rulers of the galaxy, believed the story of Earth was nothing more than myth. At least, that is what they told the public. Behind closed doors, they carried unease in their hearts. For every now and then, in the quiet corners of the galaxy, strange signals were detected. Broken codes, ghost transmissions, fragments of human language that no one could fully explain. The Council always silenced these reports quickly, afraid that panic would spread. After all, if humans were truly gone, what was there to fear? But on this day, in the Grand Hall of the Council, the whispers returned louder than ever. An old archivist named Relther stood before the rulers, trembling as he spoke. His voice echoed through the chamber, shaking with fear. "The warning has awakened," he said. "The old signal is alive again. It came from the Sol system. It came from Earth." The chamber fell silent. No one dared to move. Even the youngest counselor, who always mocked the ancient stories, could not laugh this time. The signal was real. Across the galaxy, news traveled faster than light. Soldiers whispered in the barracks. Merchants spoke in hushed tones at spaceports. Parents told their children to stay inside at night. Everyone remembered the one phrase passed down for centuries: "Never let Earth rise again." Yet no one remembered why. What had humans done that frightened the galaxy so deeply? Why had entire star systems agreed to erase their history? The fear was old, but it still lived in their bones. In the dark reaches of space, a small exploration ship named Valora picked up the signal directly. Its captain, a young alien named Kether, stared at the monitor as symbols appeared. The language was ancient Terran, filled with static and broken words, but one sentence repeated again and again: "We endure. We fight. We return." The crew exchanged nervous glances. None of them had ever seen a human, but the stories were enough to freeze their blood. Some claimed humans were giants with fire in their eyes. Others said they were demons who drank the pain of battle. The truth was unknown, but the terror was real. Captain Kether sent the recording to the Council, but before his message could reach them, the Valora made another discovery. Drifting among the asteroid belt near the silent blue planet, they found wreckage. Massive warships, black with scars of battle, yet still humming with faint power. These ships were not alien designs. They were human. Against all logic, their cores were alive, energy pulsing slowly like the heartbeat of a sleeping beast. The crew debated whether to leave immediately, but curiosity pulled them closer. As their ship approached, the wreckage came to life. Lights flickered. Weapons hummed. And then, a voice spoke. It was not the voice of a living being. It was metallic, heavy, and ancient, but it carried power. "This is Earth Defense Network. Identification required." The crew froze. No one answered. The voice continued: "Unauthorized vessel detected. State your purpose." Captain Kether swallowed hard and replied, his voice shaking. "We are explorers. We mean no harm." The silence that followed was unbearable. Then the voice spoke again, slower this time, as if recognizing something. "Explorers, not enemies. The cycle begins. Earth will rise." The crew gasped. One of the younger officers whispered, "What does it mean? Earth will rise. But no one could answer. The AI, or whatever machine intelligence it was, spoke once more before the signal ended. Awaken the warriors. The time has come. Panic spread across the crew. Warriors. Did it mean humans were still alive? Were they asleep, hidden somewhere, waiting for this moment? The captain wanted to flee, to escape the cursed place before something worse appeared. Yet at the same time, he felt history unfolding before his eyes. This was the forgotten warning the galaxy had buried. And now it had returned. When the news finally reached the council, chaos erupted. Some demanded an immediate strike against Earth, to destroy whatever remained before it was too late. Others argued that humanity was extinct, that these were only machines repeating old codes. But none could ignore the fear rising in their hearts. One counselor, the eldest among them, stood and spoke words that silenced the chamber. You cannot understand humans by records or by logic. They are more than weapons. They are willpower made flesh. If they wake again, no fleet, no empire, no council will stop them. Outside, the galaxy trembled. Armies prepared in secret. Ships gathered near borders. But deep in the Sol system, far beyond their reach, the ruins of Earth stirred once more. In the ashes of forgotten wars, something ancient was moving. The AI had spoken true. The warriors of Earth would awaken. And when they did, the galaxy would finally remember why it once feared humanity above all. The exploration ship Valora drifted silently near the wreckage of human warships. The crew felt like ants crawling on the bones of a sleeping giant. The massive black ships floated in darkness, their hulls scarred by ancient battles, yet strange lights pulsed like veins of fire across their frames. Every sensor the Valora used screamed with warnings. Power readings were unstable, weapon systems were locked but alive, and strange encrypted codes spread like whispers across the comms. Captain Kether gripped the edge of his command chair as if the ship itself might fall apart. No one on board had ever seen human technology before, yet each of them felt something unnatural. These machines were not dead. They were waiting. The AI voice returned, deeper now, echoing inside their heads as much as through the speakers. Unauthorized vessel, state your allegiance. Kether forced himself to reply. We belong to the Council of Nine. We are explorers only. For a moment, there was silence. Then the AI's tone shifted, almost thoughtful. Council of Nine. Records updated. Threat classification confirmed. Observation will begin. The crew looked at each other in fear. What did it mean by observation? Who was it watching? Before they could ask more, the screens aboard the Valora flickered and filled with human images. Soldiers standing in rows, faces grim and eyes unbroken. Tanks rolling across ruined cities. Fleets of starships launching from Earth's orbit. The pictures were old, maybe centuries old, but the message was clear. Humanity had not fought like others. They had fought as if survival itself was a weapon. One of the officers whispered, "It is showing us their history." Another added nervously, "No, it is showing us their warning." The AI's voice cut in again. You see fragments. Humanity does not end. Humanity endures. When fire dies, embers remain. Embers burn again. And the warriors sleep until called. With those words, the crew realized the impossible. The ships were not graveyards. They were guardians. Inside those colossal hulks, sealed deep within armored chambers, cryopods still rested. And inside those pods, humans might still be alive. Fear turned to panic. Several crew members begged to flee at once, to leave the cursed system before they awakened something they could not control. But Captain Kether hesitated. His instincts screamed to escape, yet curiosity chained him to the truth. What if the legends were real? What if this was the first step in something much greater? Against his own fear, he gave the order to scan deeper. The sensors pierced the walls of the wreckage and confirmed it. Hundreds of life signs, faint but steady, frozen in sleep. Human warriors waiting across centuries, preserved by machines that refused to die. The silence in the command deck was unbearable. The youngest officer finally broke it, whispering what no one wanted to hear. They are not gone. They are only waiting to wake. As if answering those words, the AI spoke again, this time not to the Valora alone but broadcasting across the void. Cycle renewal confirmed. Awakening sequence initiating. Earth rises. Lights across the ancient ships blazed like fire. Systems hummed with life. The Valora's sensors overloaded with data as if the ships themselves were stretching after centuries of slumber. Kether shouted for retreat, but it was too late. The Valora was caught in a tractor field of raw gravity energy, dragged closer to the monstrous flagship at the center. Its surface opened like a giant metal maw, and the Valora was pulled inside. Inside the hangar, the explorers felt the crushing weight of history. The chamber was vast, walls lined with silent weapons and machines older than their civilizations. At the far end, glass pods stood in endless rows, each holding a figure inside. Pale faces, armored bodies, motionless yet alive. Human warriors. Some bore scars even in sleep. Some still gripped rusted weapons, as if they had fallen into rest straight from the battlefield. Kether could not breathe. Every story he had ever dismissed as legend stood before him, real and terrible. These were the warriors who had made the galaxy tremble. And now they were stirring. The first pod hissed with steam. A man inside opened his eyes slowly. They were not the eyes of a corpse or a relic. They were alive, sharp, filled with something the aliens could not understand. The man stepped forward, his movements heavy but strong, and looked directly at the Valora's crew. No translator was needed. His voice cut through the air like a blade. "Who threatens my planet?" The crew could not answer. The galaxy had moved on. Earth was forgotten, destroyed, erased from maps. Yet this soldier spoke as if Earth still lived in his blood. His gaze alone made the officers shrink back. He was only one man, yet it felt as if a war stood behind him. The AI's voice spoke again, almost like a herald. Unit 117 awakened. Protocol active. Defense sequence engaged. More pods began to open. More humans stirred. Captain Kether fell to his knees, whispering in despair. The galaxy is not ready for this. But it was too late. The forgotten warning had become reality. Across the ancient wrecks, thousands of pods prepared to open. Across the galaxy, hidden listening posts detected the burst of energy and sent frantic alerts to their governments. And in the grand hall of the council, alarms rang. The signal from Earth had changed. It was no longer a whisper. It was a roar. The youngest counselor shouted, "We must act. Send fleets. Destroy them before they wake." But the eldest shook his head slowly. His voice carried the weight of ages. "No. You do not understand. You cannot destroy what never surrenders. If the warriors rise, the galaxy will not stop them. The galaxy will kneel." His words sent chills through the chamber. Far away, in the silent darkness of the Sol system, the first awakened human soldier looked at the alien crew, then past them, toward the stars. His lips curled in a grim smile. "We slept too long. Now we return." And with those words, the shadows of the past began to move again. The galaxy had feared this moment for centuries. Now the signal was clear. Humanity was awake. The hangar of the ancient human flagship was filled with the sound of hissing steam and cracking metal. Cryopods that had been silent for centuries were awakening one after another. Blue lights spread across the chamber as frozen soldiers slowly stirred to life. The alien crew of the Valora stood frozen in fear, unable to move or breathe. They had stepped into a tomb, but now the tomb had become a battlefield waiting to happen. The first awakened soldier, Unit 117, moved like a man pulled from a nightmare but forged in iron. His face was pale from long sleep, yet his eyes burned with clarity. He looked around with suspicion, studying the aliens in front of him as if judging their worth. His armor was scarred, dented, and ancient, yet it carried the weight of victories long forgotten by the galaxy. When he spoke again, his voice echoed through the hangar. "How long?" No one answered. His words were simple, but the tone carried thunder. Captain Kether tried to speak, but his throat was dry. Finally, he forced out, "You have slept for hundreds of years. Earth. It is not the same." The soldier's jaw tightened. He took a slow step forward, and the other pods behind him began to open. More soldiers emerged, men and women, some tall, some scarred, all wearing battle gear that looked older than the current age of the galaxy. They stood silently, blinking away the fog of centuries. Their silence was worse than shouting. It was the silence of predators who had awakened hungry. The AI voice filled the chamber once more. Earth Defense Protocol activated. Warriors of Earth, prepare for directive. The newly awakened soldiers raised their heads at the sound, as if the voice was a commander they had always obeyed. Unit 117 turned toward the nearest pod and helped a woman out. Her hair was short, her armor cracked, but her grip on the weapon inside her pod was steady. She glanced at the aliens only once before turning back to her comrade. "Are we under attack?" she asked sharply. "Unknown," Unit 117 replied. "But the protocol is active. That means enemies are near." The Valora's crew trembled. They had not fired a shot, but already the humans spoke as if war had begun. It was their nature. They did not ask who the enemy was. They assumed an enemy was always there. The alien officers whispered among themselves, trying to decide if they should run. But there was no escape. The hangar doors had sealed shut, and the humans now controlled everything. Kether knew that if he made one wrong move, the aliens would not live long enough to regret it. He raised his hands slowly, trying to show peace. "We are not your enemies," he said carefully. "We came only as explorers. We found you by accident." Unit 117 studied him with cold eyes. "Explorers? Then tell me, who commands the galaxy now? Who dares sit upon the stars while Earth sleeps?" The question was like a blade pressed against Kether's throat. He hesitated before answering. "The Council of Nine rules now. They maintain order across the galaxy." The soldier gave a harsh laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Order? No. Only chains. If they rule, then they fear us. And if they fear us, war is near." Behind him, more pods opened. Dozens of humans were now awake, each one adjusting to the new reality with frightening speed. They did not weep, they did not stumble, and they did not question why they had slept for centuries. Instead, they checked their armor, readied their weapons, and formed ranks as if instinct drove them. The alien crew realized the terrifying truth. These were not just soldiers. These were warriors who lived only for battle. Even after centuries of silence, their discipline was unbroken. One of the younger aliens could not control himself. He whispered too loudly, "They look like ghosts." A human soldier's head turned sharply, his eyes narrowing. He stepped closer until he stood towering over the alien. "Ghosts? No. Ghosts are dead. We are the storm that follows death." His words made the crew shiver. The AI voice once again thundered through the chamber. "Directive 1, defend Earth. Directive 2, destroy invaders. Directive 3, endure." The humans nodded as if the words were carved into their souls. For them, nothing had changed. The war was still alive. They had simply been asleep in the middle of it. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the flagship. Outside, alien fleets belonging to the Council had already begun to gather in the Sol system, their sensors detecting the impossible energy coming from the ancient ships. The Council had moved quickly, faster than anyone expected. They feared what might awaken, and had chosen to strike before it was too late. But it was already too late. Unit 117's helmet sealed around his head with a hiss. His voice became sharper, colder. "We are at war." He raised his arm, and the soldiers behind him mirrored his movement instantly. Weapons powered up, glowing with ancient yet deadly energy. The Valora's crew backed away, knowing that if they remained here, they would be crushed in the storm. Captain Kether shouted desperately, "Please! We are not your enemy. We can help." But the soldier cut him off with a gesture. "Then live long enough to prove it. If you betray us, we will know." With that, the humans began to march, their footsteps like thunder rolling across the hangar. The ship itself seemed to come alive in response, engines burning with new fury, weapons primed for destruction. Outside, the Council's fleets advanced, believing they faced only ruins and machines. They had no idea that the warriors of Earth had returned. The Valora's crew were pushed aside as the humans prepared for battle. Kether felt both fear and awe. He knew this was history unfolding. The galaxy had forgotten Earth's true power, but soon it would remember. As the first human ships activated and began to move, the captain whispered words no one else could hear. "The galaxy is not ready. None of us are ready." The flagship's cannons lit the void with burning light. The cryopods continued to open. More soldiers joined their brothers and sisters. The warriors of Earth were awake, and their eyes burned with one truth. Earth was their home, and they would defend it until the stars themselves went dark. The galaxy had forgotten the sight of a human warship in motion. For centuries, their name had been buried, their history erased, their legends treated as shadows of the past. But now the ancient flagship roared to life, its engines blazing with power older and stronger than anything the Council fleets had ever seen. The soldiers of Earth, freshly awakened from their cryopods, moved with terrifying precision. They did not need orders beyond what the AI had already spoken. Defend Earth. Destroy invaders. Endure. Outside the flagship's massive hull, Council ships closed in. To them, it seemed like routine. They believed they were surrounding an old ruin, a machine with no heart. Their commanders laughed at the reports of humans awakening. To them, humans were a myth. They would simply break the wreckage apart and silence the stories forever. But then the first human voice reached them. A channel opened across the battlefield, a human soldier speaking through a translator that bent across languages with sharp clarity. The voice was steady, cold, and full of iron. "This system is Earth's. Leave now, or be erased." The words echoed across the Council fleets, leaving silence in their wake. Many officers stared at their monitors in disbelief. The voice was human. They had never heard it before, yet their blood froze as if their ancestors had warned them of this exact moment. The Council Admiral forced a laugh to hide his fear. "Open fire. Erase the relic." Beams of plasma and kinetic rounds lit the void, hundreds of ships firing at once. The flagship should have shattered under the assault. Instead, its shields absorbed the storm like a mountain standing against the wind. Energy rippled across its hull, ancient systems adapting instantly to modern weapons. The human warriors inside did not flinch. They had lived through wars far greater. They had fought empires that no longer even existed. To them, this was nothing more than a warm-up. Unit 117 stood at the command platform, his helmet reflecting the glow of battle. "Target their flagship," he ordered, his voice calm as stone. "Show them Earth is awake." A single cannon rotated into position. It fired once. The beam cut through the void like a blade of fire, slicing directly into the heart of the Council Admiral's ship. There was no shield strong enough to resist. The flagship of the fleet exploded in seconds, a sun blooming where a warship had once stood. Across the Council Armada, silence turned to chaos. The aliens could not understand. One shot, one human weapon had ended their strongest ship. Fear spread faster than the flames. On board the Valora, Captain Kether and his crew watched in stunned horror. They had hoped to witness history, but they realized they were witnessing the beginning of terror. The Council had thought humans extinct, yet now one human fleet stood against hundreds, and already the balance of power was shifting. Kether whispered to himself, "They fight like no one else. They fight like the stories said." His youngest officer shook with fear. If they can do this half asleep, what will happen when they are fully awake? Inside the human flagship, the warriors moved like a single organism. More pods opened, releasing soldiers who immediately joined the ranks. None asked where they were or how long they had slept. They simply armed themselves and followed orders, as if their war had never ended. The AI directed them with ruthless efficiency, coordinating every movement, every strike. Directive in progress. Council fleets confirmed hostile. Elimination authorized. The humans did not cheer, they did not hesitate. They obeyed. A squadron of council ships tried to retreat, but the humans would not allow it. Smaller crafts, ancient fighters once thought long gone, launched from the flagship. They moved with impossible speed, their engines screaming like fire. They cut through the alien ships with surgical precision, leaving trails of burning wreckage in their wake. The galaxy had not seen these tactics in centuries. For most, it was the first time. For the humans, it was simply routine. The Council sent a desperate transmission to the Grand Hall. The humans live. The humans fight. They are awake. Panic spread among the rulers. Some demanded an immediate retreat, others demanded reinforcements. But the eldest counselor sat in silence, his hands trembling. He remembered the last war, the one the galaxy had tried to erase. He remembered how entire empires had burned under the fury of Earth's warriors. And now he whispered the words he had hoped never to speak again. We are too late. Back on the battlefield, the Valora's crew remained trapped within the hangar, watching the unstoppable rise of the human army. Unit 117 finally turned to them, his gaze piercing. You have seen enough to know the truth. Tell your council this, Earth never surrenders. If they come again, they will find only fire. Kether tried to speak, tried to plead for peace, but the soldier was already gone, returning to the battle lines. Humans did not debate when war called. They answered. Outside, the remains of the council fleet began to scatter. Some ships fled, others were destroyed, but none could stand. The humans had revealed only a fraction of their strength, yet it was enough to shatter the illusion of galactic peace. The legends were no longer legends. They were flesh and steel and fury, alive again. In the quiet moments between volleys, a human commander broadcasted a final message across all channels. To every world, to every empire, to every council that listens. We are humanity. We endured the silence. We endured the dark. And now, we rise. Remember us not as myth, but as the storm. His words carried beyond the battlefield, carried into the ears of billions across the galaxy. Civilians trembled. Soldiers froze. Leaders panicked. And everywhere, the same thought burned. Humanity was back. The council fleets retreated in shame, their commanders too shaken to continue. But retreat did not mean safety. The humans had already marked their enemies. Earth's warriors had awoken, and their first contact with the galaxy after centuries of silence was not with peace, but with fire. The message was clear. The galaxy had wanted to forget. The galaxy had wanted to believe humans were gone. But forgetting was no longer possible. First contact had happened again, and it had changed everything. The news of humanity's return traveled faster than light. Across the galaxy, from the smallest outpost to the largest capital world, whispers turned into screams. The Council of Nine tried to hide the truth, but the images of burning fleets and a single human flagship destroying entire armadas spread everywhere. Civilians who had never even heard of humans before now trembled at their name. Soldiers who had been trained to fight pirates and border raiders now faced stories of warriors who never surrendered, warriors who fought until galaxies fell silent. Fear spread like a disease, faster than any weapon could move. On the Council's homeworld, the Grand Hall was filled with chaos. Leaders shouted over one another, demanding strategies, demanding peace, demanding blood. Some wanted to send every ship they had to destroy Earth before the humans fully awakened. Others insisted that to provoke them would mean the destruction of the galaxy itself. But no matter how they argued, none could erase the fear. The eldest counselor finally raised his voice, and the room fell silent. You speak of plans as if this is just another enemy. But humanity is not an enemy. Humanity is a storm. You cannot reason with a storm. You cannot defeat a storm. You can only survive it. His words made many tremble. Few believed him before, but now they had seen what one human ship could do. If more awoke, the galaxy would have no chance. Meanwhile, across distant star systems, panic grew. Merchants refused to travel near the Sol system. Colonies near human space were abandoned overnight. Armies prepared without orders, soldiers whispering prayers they had not spoken in generations. Old stories resurfaced, the tales parents once told to frighten their children. Never wake the humans, they said. If the humans rise, worlds will burn. Now children cried at night because those stories were no longer stories. They were news reports, flashing on every screen. The Valora, still trapped within the human flagship, became both witness and prisoner. Captain Kether watched the humans prepare for war with machine-like discipline. More pods opened every hour, more soldiers stepping forward as if death itself had no meaning to them. They repaired weapons, checked armor, and memorized codes spoken by the AI. Not once did they question their orders. Not once did they speak of fear. Kether realized something terrifying. The humans did not need courage. They simply were courage. They fought as if fear was for others, never for them. He whispered to himself, "This is why the galaxy buried their name. This is why they were erased." Among the humans, one soldier stood taller than the rest, a woman with eyes like cold fire. She addressed her comrades with a voice that carried across the hangar. "Our planet may be broken, but our duty is not. We fight not for conquest. We fight because we must. And we will fight until every threat is ash." The soldiers around her pounded their fists against their armor in unison, a sound so powerful it echoed like thunder. The aliens aboard the Valora felt their bones shake. They understood then that humans did not need numbers. They needed only their will. That was their true weapon. In the outer systems, alien governments argued over what to do. Some wanted to ally with humans, hoping to avoid their wrath. Others wanted to build weapons powerful enough to match them. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. No alliance would be safe, no weapon would be enough. The fear of humanity was not just about their strength. It was about their refusal to die. Other species surrendered when hope was gone. Humans did not. They turned hopelessness into fury, and fury into victory. That was what made them terrifying. The Council launched propaganda to calm the public. They told citizens that the humans were only a small remnant, a few survivors, nothing more. They promised that fleets were being prepared to crush them. But no one believed it. Entire planets rioted, demanding protection. Armies deserted their posts, unwilling to face the return of legends. Even admirals of the fleet whispered among themselves, questioning whether war against Earth was suicide. The galaxy's greatest power was cracking under the weight of fear. Back inside the human flagship, the AI spoke to the soldiers as if the centuries of silence had never passed. Directive remains. Earth is under threat. Defenses must be restored. Hostiles will come. Prepare. The humans obeyed without hesitation. Some of them repaired ancient fighters, some rewired power conduits, some trained in silent drills that looked more like dances of death than combat. They had been frozen for centuries, yet they moved as if war had been their only sleep. Watching them, Kether realized that humanity's strength was not in their technology. It was in their unity. They moved with one mind, one heart, one purpose. No alien army had ever fought like this. That was why they had once terrified the stars. Rumors spread faster than ships. On one world, soldiers refused to board their cruisers, claiming no weapon could match the humans. On another, civilians carved human symbols on their walls, praying for protection rather than destruction. Some even began to worship the humans, calling them the eternal warriors. Fear had turned into something more dangerous, belief. And belief, once it spread, was impossible to stop. The council saw this and panicked. They issued orders to silence all transmissions about humans. They shut down networks, punished journalists, and erased footage. But they were too late. The galaxy had already seen the fire. They could not unsee it. The fear had already spread, and it was only growing stronger. In the quiet of the flagship, Unit 117 finally spoke to the Valora's crew again. His words were not threats, but they were no less chilling. Your galaxy hides from fear. You think fear will save you. But we learned long ago that fear is a weapon. And when you turn fear into fire, nothing can stop you. He looked out toward the stars, his expression unreadable. We will not conquer you. We will not hunt you. But if you bring war to Earth again, you will see why your ancestors tried to forget us. The crew could not reply. They understood that every word was true. The humans did not need to conquer the galaxy. The galaxy would destroy itself with fear before that ever happened. Already cracks had begun to form in alliances, already neighbors turned against each other. Humanity had not even left their system, yet their shadow had reached every corner of the stars. The fear had spread, and the storm was only beginning. The silence around Earth was breaking. For centuries the planet had been hidden, broken by wars and abandoned by allies, but now its heart was beating again. From orbit, the ancient defense platforms flickered with new energy, their lights glowing like the eyes of awakening giants. Deep within the ruins of old cities, machines that had slept for generations stirred. Engines roared to life under the dust of forgotten battlefields. Across the oceans, long-dormant submarines surfaced, their hulls black with rust but their weapons still deadly. Earth, wounded but alive, was waking up, and the galaxy could already feel the tremor. The humans aboard the flagship sent coded signals toward their home. For days nothing came back, only static and silence. But then a reply arrived, slow, broken, but unmistakably human. A voice, ancient yet steady, echoed through the command deck. This is Earth Command. Identify yourselves. The soldiers who had been frozen for centuries stood taller, their faces hard with determination. Unit 117 stepped forward and answered, "We are the warriors you buried. We have returned." The silence that followed carried weight heavier than any weapon. Then the voice replied with a single word, "Welcome." Far below, on the surface of Earth, the people who had survived in silence finally stepped into the light. They were not like the humans of old. Generations of hardship had shaped them into something new. Their cities were ruins, yet they had rebuilt within them, carving strength out of weakness. They had no fleets to protect them, no allies to defend them, only their blood and their will. And when they heard that their ancient warriors had returned, they did not cry in fear, they roared with pride. From the smallest child to the oldest elder, they knew what it meant. Humanity had been broken, but not destroyed. And now the galaxy would remember. The council, watching from afar, panicked. Their fleets were already spread thin, their people restless, their armies shaken by fear. They had hoped Earth would remain silent, that the humans who woke on the flagship were only remnants, ghosts of a forgotten war. But now Earth itself was stirring, and that meant the humans were not finished. They were beginning. The council tried to debate, but their voices trembled. Every strategy they spoke collapsed under the same truth. They were facing a force that refused to die. And how do you destroy what refuses to die? Across the flagship, soldiers prepared to descend to Earth. Their weapons were old, but their spirits were unbroken. They would return home not as wanderers, but as protectors. The Valora crew watched in silence as dropships prepared for launch. They could not believe what they were seeing. An army long frozen, returning to a world long abandoned, yet standing stronger than any fleet. Captain Kether whispered to himself, "We were fools to think they were gone. This is only their beginning." When the soldiers landed, Earth shook. Survivors gathered in the streets of ruined cities, staring at the armored warriors stepping out of fire and smoke. Some fell to their knees, others raised their fists in salute. The soldiers removed their helmets, revealing faces hardened by war yet softened by tears. They had dreamed of Earth for centuries, and now they stood upon it again. One soldier knelt and pressed her hand to the cracked soil. "We are home," she said softly, and her words spread through the crowd like fire. Cheers erupted, voices rose, and for the first time in generations, Earth roared. The AI of the flagship connected with Earth's ancient defense network. Systems long forgotten came back online, one by one. Satellites aligned, cannons adjusted, power grids awakened. A shield of light rose around the planet, thin but growing stronger every hour. Earth was becoming what it once had been, a fortress among stars. The survivors who had lived in hiding now stood behind that shield with pride. They were not afraid of war. They were waiting for it. In the council chambers, the youngest counselors begged for peace. "Send envoys," they cried. "Make treaties, offer them worlds, anything to keep them calm." But the elders shook their heads. They knew treaties would mean nothing. Humans did not fight for wealth or territory. They fought because they must, and because survival was in their blood. To them, war was not politics. War was life. And that was what made them unstoppable. Across alien worlds, people argued in fear. Some shouted for war before the humans grew stronger. Others whispered that maybe the humans could be allies, protectors instead of destroyers. But no one could agree, and the galaxy fractured. Old alliances broke, neighbors turned suspicious, and trust vanished. The galaxy was not just afraid of humanity's strength. It was afraid of itself. The shadow of Earth had thrown every empire into chaos. Back on Earth, the returned soldiers trained with the survivors. Old and new humans stood side by side, sharing weapons, sharing stories, sharing fury. The young learned how to hold rifles, how to fight without hesitation. The veterans taught them that fear was a chain, and chains must be broken. In ruined stadiums, in cracked streets, in the ashes of once great cities, humanity prepared. Every heartbeat, every voice, every step spoke of the same truth. They were ready. The Valora crew, still stranded, were brought down to Earth. They expected punishment, but instead they were shown mercy. The humans did not hate them. They pitied them. Unit 117 told them, "You were only messengers of fear. We do not destroy messengers. But tell your people this. Earth does not seek war. Yet if war comes, Earth will not burn alone. The galaxy will burn with it." The words sank into their hearts like stone. They realized that mercy itself was a weapon in human hands, sharper than any blade. That night, for the first time in centuries, the skies above Earth glowed with light. Fires burned in the cities not from destruction, but from celebration. Songs were sung, drums were beaten, banners were raised. Children danced in the streets, soldiers stood guard with pride, and elders wept with joy. The world had been silent too long, but now it had found its voice. Earth had awakened, and its voice was thunder. From distant stars, the galaxy watched with dread. They had tried to bury humanity under time and silence. But humanity had risen, fiercer than before. The storm they feared was no longer on the horizon. It was here. And it was only the beginning. The council could not wait any longer. Their fear had grown too heavy, their people demanded action, and their fleets were restless. Some argued for peace, others for retreat, but the voices of pride drowned out the voices of reason. They told themselves that if humanity was allowed to rise again, the galaxy would belong to no one else. So the order was given. A coalition fleet, the largest seen in centuries, was gathered. Hundreds of warships, thousands of fighters, and entire legions of soldiers were sent toward Earth. Their mission was simple: strike first, strike fast, and end humanity before they could spread. It was the galaxy's first strike, but deep down, many already knew it might also be their last. The fleet moved through space like a black tide. Civilians on border worlds watched the armada pass overhead with fear in their eyes. Soldiers aboard the ships whispered among themselves, not of victory, but of death. They had heard the stories. They had seen the burning wreckage of fleets destroyed by a single human flagship. Yet they obeyed, because disobedience meant death at the hands of their own leaders. The galaxy was not united by courage. It was united by fear, and fear pushed them toward Earth. On Earth, the humans already knew. The AI of the flagship had detected the fleet before it left the Council's homeworld. Instead of panic, there was preparation. The soldiers who had returned from the cryopods stood ready, their armor shining under the ruined skies. The survivors of Earth trained harder, armed with weapons repaired from the ruins and guided by warriors who had fought in wars long before they were born. The defense platforms above the planet charged with energy, cannons turning slowly toward the stars. The humans did not hide. They did not run. They waited. When the fleet arrived on the edge of the Sol system, the commanders expected a frightened world. They expected silence, hesitation, maybe even surrender. What they found instead was defiance. A message reached their ships, broadcast across every channel. It was Unit 117, his voice calm, steady, and merciless. You come with fear in your hearts. You think numbers will save you. But we are humanity. We do not count numbers. We count victories. And this will not be yours. His words spread through every ship, and even the bravest alien captains felt their hands shake. The Council fleet launched its fighters first, thousands of them screaming across the void toward Earth. They swarmed like locusts, blackening the stars. But before they could reach the planet, the ancient defense grid came alive. Beams of light cut through space, slicing fighters in half, turning squadrons into fireballs. Explosions lit the sky, and within minutes, hundreds of fighters were gone. The rest pressed forward, but their formation was broken. Already the first strike was failing. Then came the capital ships, massive war cruisers armed with weapons powerful enough to level moons. They opened fire on Earth's shield, pouring everything they had into it. The shield trembled, flickered, but did not fall. Instead, Earth's surface responded. From the ruins of old cities, missile silos opened, launching weapons that had slept for centuries. The sky filled with burning trails as nuclear fire met alien steel. Explosions ripped through the fleet, tearing holes in their once perfect line. For every missile that hit, another dozen were launched. The aliens had expected an easy target, but Earth was not weak. Earth was a fortress. The flagship joined the battle next, its cannons blazing. With a single strike, it shattered an enemy destroyer. With two, it ripped through a cruiser's shields as if they were paper. The Valora, still aboard, watched in awe as the humans fought with fury beyond reason. They did not fight for conquest, they did not fight for glory, they fought for survival. Every blast, every strike, every sacrifice was fueled by the same fire. Fear had driven the Council to attack, but fear had turned into fury for the humans, and fury was far more dangerous. The alien fleet pressed on, desperate to break the shield. Boarding pods were launched, crashing through the atmosphere in flames. Alien soldiers poured into ruined cities, but they found no weakness. They found humans waiting for them. Men and women, young and old, armed with rifles, blades, even stones, fought with the same savage strength. The returned soldiers led them, cutting through enemies with precision, teaching their people that fear was nothing. Every street became a battlefield, every building a fortress, every alley a grave. The invaders had thought they were the hunters, but they had walked into a nest of wolves. One alien commander broadcast a message to the Council, his voice broken with terror. They are not fighting like us. They are not afraid of death. We kill them, and more rise. We burn their homes, and they fight in the ashes. We cannot stop them. We cannot. His message ended with static, his ship consumed by a human warhead. The battle raged for hours. The Council fleet lost dozens of ships, thousands of fighters, and legions of soldiers. Earth's shield flickered but held. The humans fought without pause, without mercy, without surrender. Even when outnumbered, they fought harder. Even when wounded, they fought longer. The aliens had hoped their first strike would be the last, but instead it became their nightmare. At last, the Council ordered a retreat. The survivors of the fleet turned and fled, limping away from Earth like beaten dogs. Behind them, the planet still stood, shield glowing, weapons armed, voices roaring. Humanity had taken its first strike and survived. More than survived, it had triumphed. On the ground, among the ruins, soldiers and survivors stood together, bloodied but unbroken. Children clung to their parents, elders stood with pride, warriors raised their weapons high. The sky above them was still filled with smoke, but the fires burned with victory. Unit 117 looked to the stars and spoke not to his people, but to the galaxy. They came with fear. They left with terror. Now they know. Earth has awakened, and Earth does not forgive. The message spread across the stars faster than the retreating fleet. Entire worlds trembled as they heard it. Empires shook, leaders fell silent, and people whispered the same words again and again. The humans have returned. And they will not be stopped. The council had tried to strike first, but instead they had lit the fire of war. A war they could no longer control. And in that moment, the galaxy realized the truth. The first strike had not ended humanity. It had only begun their revenge. The retreat of the council fleet was not just a defeat. It was a signal, a crack that spread across the galaxy like lightning. Worlds that once believed in the council's power now questioned its strength. Soldiers who once marched proudly under its banners whispered in fear of the humans. Civilians who had been told humans were myths now prayed in silence that Earth would not notice them. The galaxy trembled, not because humans had conquered it, but because humans had shown they could not be conquered. In the council chambers, silence hung heavier than words. The leaders who had demanded the strike now bowed their heads in shame. The younger counselors asked the same question again and again, "What now?" But there was no answer. Some spoke of a second strike, but even as they said it, their voices shook. They knew another fleet would not survive. Others whispered of surrender, but surrender to humans was something no alien leader could imagine. The council had ruled for centuries through fear, and now fear itself had betrayed them. Across border worlds, rebellion sparked. Colonies long ignored by the council now raised banners of independence, shouting that if the council could not protect them, they would protect themselves. Pirates, smugglers, and mercenaries who once hid in the shadows now declared loyalty to no one. The galaxy was fracturing, breaking apart under the weight of its own fear. And in every corner, one name was spoken in whispers: humanity. On Earth, the people celebrated their survival, but there was no rest. The soldiers who had returned from the cryopods drilled harder than ever. The survivors trained with new purpose, children learning to hold rifles before they learned to write. The defense grid was repaired, expanded, and armed with weapons pulled from the ruins of old wars. Above the planet, the flagship orbited like a guardian, its cannons glowing, its AI whispering orders to awaken more machines. Humanity was not waiting for the next attack. Humanity was preparing to strike back. The Valora crew watched all of this with a mixture of awe and dread. They had expected to die in the first battle, but instead they had lived to see a legend reborn. Captain Kether could not sleep. Every night he heard the sound of human chants echoing in his head, the thunder of fists striking armor, the roar of a species that refused to break. He realized something terrible. The galaxy had feared humanity's strength, but the truth was even worse. The galaxy should have feared humanity's unity. Alone, they were dangerous. Together, they were unstoppable. Rumors spread faster than fleets. Some claimed the humans had built secret weapons beneath their ruined cities. Others swore they could fight without air, without food, without rest. Many believed that death itself feared humanity, and that was why they always returned. The stories grew wilder every day, but no one dismissed them. Because the truth was already terrifying enough. In the ruins of Earth's greatest city, the soldiers held a council of their own. Unit 117 stood at the center, surrounded by warriors and survivors alike. His voice was steady, his eyes cold. They struck first. They failed. Now they will come again, not with one fleet, but with many. We cannot wait for them. We must show them that fear belongs to us, not to them. His words were met with silence at first, then a roar of approval that shook the ruined walls. Humanity would not wait to be hunted. Humanity would become the hunter. When the Council learned of Earth's preparations, panic turned into desperation. They sent spies, envoys, even assassins, but none returned. The humans captured them all, some alive, some not. Messages were sent back with only a single phrase carved into metal: Earth remembers. The meaning was clear. Every crime, every betrayal, every forgotten war would be paid back in blood. And so the galaxy trembled, not just from fear of destruction, but from fear of justice. Empires that had once joined in burying humanity's name now feared they would be the first to face its wrath. Generals resigned, leaders fled, populations rioted. Entire worlds begged to break away from the Council, offering to side with Earth if only to survive. But Earth had not yet spoken of alliances. Earth spoke only of survival, and survival demanded strength. The Valora crew finally asked Unit 117 a question that burned in their minds. What do you want? His answer was not conquest, not wealth, not even revenge. His answer was a promise. We want our world safe. We want our children free. If the galaxy allows that, then we will leave it in peace. But if the galaxy denies us, then the stars themselves will burn. The aliens shuddered. For the first time, they understood. Humanity did not seek to rule. Humanity sought to endure. And to endure, they would do anything. As the weeks passed, the galaxy's trembling grew into chaos. Fleets deserted their posts, colonies declared independence, and the Council's voice grew weaker by the day. In the shadows of broken empires, humanity grew stronger. Their ships were repaired, their soldiers trained, their weapons awakened. The sound of their marches echoed not only on Earth but across the void, carried in signals that every empire intercepted. The message was always the same: humanity had returned. The galaxy waited for the Second War, but deep inside, everyone knew the truth. It would not be a war of empires. It would not be a war of borders. It would be a war of survival, and in such a war, only one species had ever proven unbreakable. The galaxy trembled because it already knew the answer. In the final hour of the night, standing atop the ruins of his world, Unit 117 looked to the stars and whispered, "You tried to forget us. But you cannot forget fire. You cannot forget war. You cannot forget humanity." And as his words spread across the void, the galaxy trembled, not with the fear of what had been, but with the terror of what was yet to come.